One of the things I valued a lot about the Bootstrap curriculum was watching my students produce their capstone projects and to see their presentations. If you have time in your curriculum for students to do capstone projects, I highly recommend that they do this. This video is going to walk you through what to do with the capstone project and the various options that you have and the various tools that are available for it. So let's start off with the timing of that project. Yes, capstone means final, the end. It is a final project, but please do not wait until the very end of the course to begin it. You know how students are when they get to the very end and you just dump a project on them, they will wait until the very last minute. And we all know sometimes they don't do things till the night before it's due, and then we get less than, yeah, the value is not quite so high, right? It's not like that in Bootstrap because the students have begun this project early in their learning, way back after choosing your own data set, after they have done the data cycle and pie and bar chart. If you have started them on their data exploration template, they have started their capstone project because they've begun to put their items that they've created in this template. There is another video out there on data exploration template. So if you haven't watched that or have questions on that, please go and view that video where you'll get details on how to use that. But right now I'm going to focus on the capstone. So they have begun on that to put in, as soon as you've done it, they put in a pie and a bar chart into that from their chosen data set. Every lesson you're choosing to teach them from then on out, they're going to add content from each of those lessons from their chosen data set into it. So if you go to box plots, you teach them in animals, and then they add a box plot from their chosen data set into the data exploration template. And they add an interpretation. And so they're already thinking along the lines here for their data set. At one point in this, you need to settle them down and come up with a good research question, a statistical research question that will be interesting to them. And that you're going to guide them to this really good question that they will be looking at as they're making their displays. And so these displays they make are going to go along that line for the remaining of their analysis efforts. And then once all of the lessons are complete, make sure you give them ample time to just formulate this into a nice product and give them time for presentations. I'll go into more details on these 4 areas as we go through here. But let's talk a little bit about the different options of the product, if you will, before we talk about the timing a little bit more in those different 4 pieces. As we talked about that data exploration template, they move along with that, and they've been storing their products in that. If that's as much as you have time for, then they can turn in that product. It will be a completed product. At the end, it will have all their graphs in it. It will have their interpretations and their questions and their findings in it. You can just stop there if that's what you have time for. You can expect them for the capstone if you wish to move forward and make those more formal slides. And by that I mean, if they're doing a serials data set, then go out and get some serial graphics and make this more into a more appealing thematic slides presentation, and make sure the theme and the story flows throughout. Maybe a couple of the graphs would come in. I always told my students when they made their slides, I didn't want the format from the template for their interpretation to be in there. I would rather have it in a paragraph form. They were just copy pasting from their template, but making it look more like a formal presentation. And then because I had juniors and seniors in high school, I had mine also create a research paper for this capstone. Mine had do slides for that presentation piece that makes it easier to present to others, but they also had to come up with a formal research paper where it was in paragraph form. Again, they're just copy pasting their graphs that they've already copied into data exploration template. A lot of their paragraph explanations were already in their data exploration template. but putting it together to weave that nice data story. Maybe they need to add more sentences. Maybe they need to put it together a little bit differently, making sure their displays are right with their words. And it's just kind of having it flow to tell a really fluid story. And then, of course, that presentation that we talked about, making sure that they do present their findings to somewhere, that class, their school, put them up on a bulletin board. Even if you don't have time for actual presentations to one another, make sure that their research papers or their slide templates somehow are put up on the bulletin board for others to see. Others need to see the work that's been done. So that data expiration paper, I threw up a copy of it just in case you're going, what was she talking about, that data expiration template? I forgot what that was. It looks like this, and it has blue font in it from the animals, and they would go in and answer those questions. It has samples from the animals to show them what they would be doing with their own pie charts if they want, and then how they could fill it in. And you can see here where they put their interpretation in. Gives them scaffolding to come in and put it in. But here's the beauty of this template. Let's say that there were a research question morphs along the way. My students had that happen a lot. Like they start with a research question, and as they begin to dig into it, their research question changes a little, or they like a different one instead because they were getting into the data and something else piques their interest a little bit more, or their question leads to another question that seems better or deeper, let's put it that way. Well, then fine. Maybe they want a different pie chart that's going to end up going in their data story. Then they can delete the one that they've already saved or keep it however they want, but put a new one in. So I tell them this data exploration template is more like their scratch paper. They're just storing the things that they're finding, and the things that they're just storing it there until they're ready to put it into their final product. It just makes the work at the end so much easier. It also has things in here if you're doing measures of center. It has a place for them to do a lot of their work for their measures of center, a place to store their work. And here we talked quickly about those formal slides where you're just going to beautify them with graphics. Maybe you want to completely start a whole nother slideshow and just copy paste from the template into it. However your students wish to do it or how you wish to direct them. But just make sure they're telling that story that's going to answer that research question. I have some examples here of the slides, and this student did one on the peregrine falcon's behavior. She was really worked at a bird sanctuary. As you could see, this was the main things that were required from the data exploration template, but she spruced it up for her main slide. And then here's her data analysis with her pie chart. She put her analysis off on the side, and then a stacked bar chart with analysis off on the side. So she was able to add graphics, make it more colorful, more interesting. This student did the cereals data set. Reason I picked this slide is because they chose to put a couple of the graphs on the same slide because they were both about sugar, and they were able to put some of their interpretation about sugars on the same. And then when you have your conclusion slide, they could throw some graphics in about cereal and have some cereal pictures in. Just makes it more interesting to the viewers as they're going along. Now that research paper, I mentioned that we do have a template for that formal research paper. This is just some pages from that template. Don't worry about trying to read it all right now, but you can find it in the lesson. As you can see, it has blue sections just like the data exploration template did. And they could go into this research paper and see the scaffolding and the examples for these 4 sections. They write about their data set, the question, the analysis, and then the discussion has questions there about it. Again, they already have most of this done in their data exploration template, and they just bring it in and put it in template form. Just took some samples from a couple of students from my courses, and you can see that they now have the graphs in with the text around them to explain what's going on with that. The discoveries here is findings, discoveries section. If you teach the threats to validity section, the student was thinking about some possible threats to validity in the football data set from Bootstrap. And also notice that these students chose to use some of the advanced displays in order to get some deeper analysis done. So the paragraphing is around the displays, looks very professional. And the students have a very nice product that you can display. There we talked about brainstorming what your audiences could be. Talked about a library or another place on campus where you can invite people to rotate through. That's really a cool experience for the students to present several times as important people walk around. I really like inviting community stakeholders if you can do that now. But bottom line, please give students a chance to share their findings. And yes, there are rubrics. There's the rubrics on the data exploration template. If that's where you're going to stop, you could see there the different categories just using the template. If you're going for slides, if you're going to go for the full-blown research paper, we have a template for that as well. But bottom line is the Capstone project is an amazing way for students to demonstrate what they have learned in the course and to demonstrate their new skills in data science. So I highly recommend it. Whether you do all of the lessons in Bootstrap or some of them, they can demonstrate the things that they have learned in a data set of their choosing, or if you've chosen a separate data set as a class, it's a way for them to show how they can jump into a research question, whether it's the same data set for the whole class or not, and everybody has different research questions. It's very interesting and engaging for the class, so I highly recommend you give it a try.